Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Nerd Glasses podcast. I'm Boater. I'm Dave Man.
Dave, man, I have a question for you, and that is,
Yes.
why did Luke Skywalker start working at the local hospital?
Hmm. Blue milk ain't cheap.
Because a Jedi must have patience.
Now that one I like. That one
I,
I
I can't take credit for that one. That must be why you like it. Hi,
the
everybody. Welcome to Nerd Glasses Podcast.
the amount of
Uh,
high ground references we make in Warzone now, it's very aesthetically pleasing.
I was recording Mech Assault earlier today, as all this, and I'm on a lava planet, and someone is trying to shoot me while I'm up on a cliff edge. I said, "Don't try it. I'm on the high ground. It's universal. It's what you do." I'm, I'm wearing what I was doing for Mech Assault recording.
I
It
just
is. It is a tactical vest that is slightly too tight on me, and I'm unhappy with how much muffin top I have under it. But you can't see
a
that because it's off camera.
a gimmick. I love the gimmick here. Okay, podcast's over. Thank you very much. Like stealing from nostalgia be damned, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Corona pod. So
hey,
much muffin.
that's the
Oh.
bot of safety.
So hello to Demon Dragon, Rafe Wolf, and Vladdy all in chat. Hope everyone's doing well this evening. We've got a few topics lined up. Dave, I never did ask you when you want to hit the a couple of the bigger ones that we had planned out. If you want to get to those later, if you want to just kick things right off.
Let's kick things right off with Final Fantasy because
Okay.
I mean it's so damn hard to get.
Yeah, it's so a couple weeks ago, the Final Fantasy VII remake came out, and Steph finished that over the weekend. I was watching her through most of that because I had a slight head cold, so like one weekend I was just sitting in half a coma just watching her. And so watch that, and then I finished playing Final Fantasy 15. So we've got two games that I kind of want to discuss the ending of, and we'll start with Final Fantasy 15. And to see if you want to tune in, this game is 3 or 4 years old at this point. Dave, what's the date on the back of that box?
2016.
Okay, so 4 years at this point. Might have been the end of, maybe 3.5 years. And spoilers are more or less fair game, but we are going to talk about it a bit. I am going to flash a spoiler warning up on screen right here for Final Fantasy 15. Hold on.
I like it.
I apologize. I just finished eating and I didn't want you wonderful folks on the podcast to smell that. So okay, cool. A couple months ago, I guess this was when we were still in the studio. We talked about open world games and how some of them can more smoothly handle the transition from the end game back to the open world that you can do afterward. And I felt so have you played Final Fantasy 15, Dave? I see you there with the deluxe edition.
I have can I tangent for a little
Yeah,
story
by
about
all
Final
means,
Fantasy
by all
15?
means.
Um, I was working for a company when this game came out. My manager let me leave my shift to go get a deluxe copy. I got like a really cool T-shirt, a Jones Soda reference to Final Fantasy 15, and then I worked all weekend, so I didn't get to crack it open at the time. Then, as we know with open world games and things like that, time kind of got away with me from me.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the summer came and money got thin, and so I had to sell the copy of Final Fantasy
Oh
15.
no!
But I did not give GameStop the DVD or the hard case edition. So I have played about as much Final Fantasy 15 as someone that does not own the game. Um, I just kept this because I kept telling myself you're going to buy another copy of this and you're going to play it because you're going to like it as much as you think you will. And then a bunch of my friends streamed it and things like that. So it's not like I have no clue what's going on, but
Yeah,
like there's a difference between holding the controller and watching someone holding the controller. But
yeah.
so
So,
that's my Final 15 experience.
yes. Hello to more like rigor mortis. Yes, the floof is gone for now. Is fuzzy instead. Yes. So, if you play through just the storyline of Final Fantasy 15, you spend about the first half of your story in Lucis, which is where the open world stuff is. Then you go to Altissa. Then you go to the Imperial Continent, whatever it's called, and then you finally come back to Lucis at the end to do something else. Um, but like while you're in Lucis, that's when you can do all of the open world things, where you can do all of your side quests, where you can say, all right, cool, I'm gonna take this mission from this guy who has a vlog, not a vlog, a magazine, a zine, whatever. Get me some photos. Cool. You go around getting photos all over the place. Um, and at one point, he's like, "Hey, get me a photo in Altissa." Sure, great. When the story gets to chapter 9, I'll head over to Altissa, I'll get that photo. I'll stop back in Lucis for you. The thing is, after Altissa, stuff happens, and you're immediately put on the Imperial continent. And that plays out very linearly. There's like basically no side quests at all. If there are, they're very self-contained in a spot. And then when you're done with that, there's a time skip. So you go forward in time. Again, spoilers. Hold on. Let me. I mean, I kind of said it, but
Hi,
you go
Auntie.
forward 10 years to Lucis, and it's not the open world. It's a very limited part of it where bad stuff is happening, and you need to fix the bad stuff. And at the end, spoilers, Noctis, the main character that you've been playing, dies, sacrifices himself for the good of the world. It's really, really hard to go back to open world gameplay after that. There is this mechanic where you can call Umbra, a very good dog, and go travel back in time to previous chapters. So that's where you can carry some of your like experience through. You can, I would have to get my photo in Altissa and then go back in time to hand it to the reporter. Like, don't. It's so unsmooth as a way to do the thing. Like, if I'm not going to go back to that open world area, don't give me a quest to do something away from it, because it breaks immersion so bad.
So, Boater, you're
Yes.
telling me that in in f- in Final Fantasy, you play through the entire game with this team, you get very attached to the characters, and at the end of it, one of them dies, but then the game lets you either pick up 10 steps behind that or beyond without it. So we're not talking about Final Fantasy 10 or or 7 or
The
8
thing that annoyed me is
or
that, like, say like in Mass Effect 3, you can then load your game, and you're always confronted with, here's where we go into the end game, but you still have the whole open world in front of you. Load it up, do your side quests, whatever. Here, the open world is done at the end of chapter 9. There are 15 chapters in the game. Like, that is a lot of game that is post open world, and some of the stuff from up to chapter 9 requires you to do a couple things that are in chapter 10 and beyond. Like, that is a step too far for me to like be able to properly like sit back and go, okay, cool, great. Like, at the end, you can load your end game save, and then it drops you back in the open world, able to do all the quests over again. So I'm not even picking up that quest from that point in the progress. It's you get everything over again plus a whole bunch of new quests, and it's just uh so I really enjoyed 15. It was my first Final Fantasy. And I did very much enjoy it.
good.
But that transition from endgame back to open world is the most abrupt, least finessed, least smooth thing ever.
Final Fantasy does exactly what the title advertises. It is an enormous fantasy and it has these big striking like moments. The problem is that it's a video game and you kind of have to let the player at in this era continue that save file.
Yeah,
People get really mad when the game has any open world mechanics and you take
and
that
you
away from them.
exactly.
Rightfully so, but
Yeah.
at the same time, it takes away from that finality. Like,
Well, it's like I can understand that. Okay, make sure you've done everything. We're going to the Imperial, whatever. But like the fact that I couldn't go back to Lucis after Altissa, and just like dawdle around and do a couple more little side quests, grab a couple more things. Like, oh hey, I should do this other side quest so that I have a thing that'll help me through the rest of the game. And it just the fact that the last part of open world was so far before the end of the game. Yeah, I mean, and ultimately they do. You can drop back into the game with all your experience. You can do all the side quests over again. New Game Plus is a thing Demon Dragon brings up, and that's something that you could possibly do as well. like New Game Plus is always a really nice thing. You pick up a lot of things throughout the game. I had the benefit throughout the time of having the DLC that Steph got, like Deluxe Edition and stuff. So I had a really overpowered sword right from the get-go, and it made the game quite simple. Um, but I enjoyed playing it for like the storyline rather than, the challenge of everything. We've talked before. I don't play a game for like overcoming the challenge. I end up getting pissed at bosses and stuff like that.
I enjoy the idea of New Game Plus though, because it especially and this happens in Final Fantasy, and all of you out there who have ever played any RTSs or RPGs know this experience of like later in the game when you have these items from the start of the game and
Hmm.
you're like, I'm gonna need this later, and then the moment where you need it and you should use it, you're like, I'll tough it out without it because I'm gonna need this later.
Yeah, yeah.
And then in New Game Plus, it's like I have a billion of these and I'm just gonna waste them.
Oh yeah,
Like
I just going for it. Um, Anyclaus Prime says that he's bought a few Final Fantasies and never played longer than a few hours. And I like my first time that I picked up Final Fantasy 15, I started playing it, but I was also coming down with a head cold then too, so I was just like exhausted, and I thought that my exhaustion was a lack of enthusiasm for the game, and I almost dropped it. I came back a couple days later when I was recovered. I was like, you know what? Let me pick this up. Let me try it, and I liked it. Like it's weird that like I thought I wasn't enjoying the game, when
yeah.
really what I wasn't enjoying was the fact that I was getting sick to my stomach and probably about to hurl somewhere. For all the noobs in the chat, what's New Game Plus? New Game Plus is when you get to, let's say, level 50 in playing a game and you have a whole bunch of equipment and bonuses and stuff, and you finish the game. If you then import that save game into a new game, so you're starting from chapter 1 again, you're doing the storyline over again, but rather than playing as a level 1 character with no leveled up skills, you're playing as that level 50 character with a whole bunch more skills, advanced skill trees. And it's interesting because like the max level in Final Fantasy 15 is 99. I got to level 60, not intentionally sitting and grinding everything, but by doing every single side quest that would grant experience. And like I didn't go out of my way to find dungeons of monsters that weren't going to fulfill a side quest, but I still got to level 60, and that's a lot of headroom after that. So clearly, it's the kind of game that is meant for me to go back at level 60 and start a brand new game and see if I can get up to 99, doing a few more things.
I do want to out loud thank you more like rigor mortis for saying that things, because Boder and I mean there's a reason it's called nerd glasses. Boder and I have collective video game experience and things like that, and if we throw around jargon or are talking about topics and you guys in the audience don't know what it is, please feel free to ask because we would love to elaborate.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything more on 15, or shall we move on to the somewhat more recent and yet not more recent?
um Did you get any of the Final Fantasy trademark legendary weapons in your first playthrough?
I wouldn't know Final Fantasy trademark legendary weapons, necessarily, because this was my first Final Fantasy. I saw things that, oh yes, that's definitely a reference to previous ones, the summons, the, chocobos and etc. But,
Yeah. So
um,
basically, in any Final Fantasy game, you know how each character, they all look like someone's acid dream, and then they just kind of went into a sewing room and just came out with these things. And each of those characters look so distinctively different, and they all use different weapons, whether it's a
yep.
sword or a big sword or a small sword or whatever. Um, or in the case of Waka from my favorite Final Fantasy, a blitzball, which was mwah. But there's a like god tier weapon for each of them.
Okay.
um and they are usually the biggest pain in the ass to get, and by the time you get them you've probably already beaten the game and you're in New Game Plus anyway.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
it's one of those things of like, well, why leave this save file at 98% when I can just get that last weapon for that character I don't
Yeah,
use.
exactly.
um
Dave, you are slightly unfocused. So I don't know if you turn that off and turn it back on again. I'm not quite sure.
let's see what that does, and I'm not going to hang up. Ooh, I'm invisible.
Ooh.
Ooh.
I'm not gonna hang up, and then his audio cut for a second, guys. That was. I'm not gonna hang up.
Did it
Click.
work?
Hangs up. It worked. Yay! You are
Yay!
less blurry. So that's our Final Fantasy 15 more or less like. It was my first Final Fantasy. I really enjoyed it. The open world aspect of the ending was uh,
God bless you. That was your first Final
it
Fantasy.
was. It was. I mean, like I've watched Steph play 10 before, and by
Yeah.
that I mean I've watched her play Blitzball before. I mean, I've glimpsed her playing other parts of 10, but I've seen her playing
Yeah.
a lot of Blitzball.
Blitzball's the
Um,
best.
and I think she got 13, and I watched her as she started playing that, but that didn't really hold her interest, and so like she didn't play any of the 13 sequels or anything as well.
Mm-mm.
I think 4 is Steph's favorite, and she's telling me that I must play it, so we'll get there.
What I will say, Boater, is, and especially for all of you out there, if you play a Final Fantasy, their numbers go up now to 15. Possibly there's a 16 for
Not yet.
PC players only. I don't. But don't be afraid. Just jump into a beginning number.
Yeah, so
If it
we'll
says
say
10-2 or 13-2, don't
yeah,
get it on those per se. But
because the main series of games that go one, two, three, they are not sequels to each other. Each one is its own thing. Final Fantasy 15 you can play without having played any prior Final Fantasies or knowing anything about the lore. Bingo, did it. You'll get a little bit more out of it because there's repeated elements, but absolutely you can just uh, lose your train of thought. You can play any, like you can pick up Final Fantasy X and start playing it. Now some of the games have sequels, so that will be Final Fantasy
yeah.
X-2, Final
Nope.
Fantasy
Nope.
13
That one
2.
doesn't exist.
There
Don't ever
are
play 10-2.
spin-offs. I believe Final Fantasy VII Dirge of Cerberus.
Yeah, it is a sequel because some of the main characters actually had like more story to
Okay.
tell. Um,
Um, and there's other like 12 I think either has a sequel or a spin-off. So by all means like don't grab those right off the bat. But what we'll do really quick, Dave, where would you recommend someone starts with Final Fantasy? Do you have an entry that you think is a really good entry?
honestly, for visual graphics and things like that, if you're into, I would say 10.
Okay.
Or
10 was
or the
PS2 era, and it's a little
yes,
dated as far as that. Is there a
it
remaster of
does
that yet?
it does
Not a
still hold up.
remaster, an HD there was an HD re-release of 10 recently.
Yes, it
Okay,
does
so
hold up.
that's a good place to start with that
Um,
then.
I can also say 8 was good because it gives you it's of the old style where it's turn-based combat and the style of one main brooding male character, one main female brooding character. Interesting sidekick that has 14 lines of dialogue through the entirety of the game. Like,
I saw, so not having played 8, I saw a friend of mine was quite critical of it as saying while they did so well with 7, they took the same tropes and archetypes and just copied and pasted and changed a few things. How much that's actually true will depend. It's also one of those things. What is your first? So I have a friend of mine who like her first Star Wars was Phantom Menace, so it's her favorite. Um, if your first Final Fantasy was Final Fantasy 8, you're really going to enjoy it, and 7's going to seem a little stale in comparison. Um, so it's kind of which one you play. And yeah, so like 15 was a very like oddball thing as far as Final Fantasy goes. It was a lot more rooted in reality. Although there is still, magic and beasts and everything like that, but you're driving around on roads in a car and
it's a car and you run out of gas. Like,
yeah, yeah.
and then you got to push that shit.
And so it's a different one, but I still really enjoyed it. But I also enjoyed watching Steph play the Final Fantasy VII remake. As I mentioned, she finished that, and there is the big question of, well, it's only the first part of the game. The remake that has been made is just Midgar, which when you're playing the original game, which is 30 or 40 hours, Midgar is the first 8 hours of the game before it goes big and open world. So what are they doing charging $60 for just the first part of the game? It is a 35, 40 stuff. I'm not quite sure. Maybe like 42 hours you put into that at that point when that all came to the end because, man, that end
Go to the
chapter
spoiler
was long.
graphic.
Yep. So I'll drop that up in just a moment. But the question is, with all that, is it still worth playing? And I will say yes because of what they did differently. Spoiler graphic. Okay. Um. So in in Final Fantasy VII, stuff happens. I didn't play it, but basically stuff happens to a certain point, and then you're released into the open world with Midgar. What Final Fantasy VII did was that it introduced a bunch of things in that first, normally 8 hours of gameplay. Damn it! Hold on. Right graphic. Got the right graphic. It introduced things in that 42 hours of gameplay that would begin to push things a little in a different tack. And the thing is that like how different could they make it? Because because it is a remake of a previous game and they can't stray from that too far. And like that's kind of the thing going on in your head, like, oh, they could do this, but they're not going to. And at one point, there's something entirely new introduced called the Whispers. They're like these weird spectral spirits going around, and they will sometimes change things, or keep someone from getting to a certain point, where like the way it's playing out, you're like, oh man, this might actually play out differently than it did in the original. And then the Whispers come up and kind of like push someone back, wall someone off, enforce a certain way that things are going to be done. And like maybe the third or fourth time that it happened, and it happened very sparingly in the first 30 hours or so,
Yep.
that when it happened, I was like, oh, they're kind of keeping it on track. That's kind of interesting. Like I started to kind of cop to that. Towards the end, they start doing it more and more and more. And there's so many like, oh, we could have done this. We, spoilers, we could have killed Barrett, but a whisper just flew out of him and he's fine. Because obviously in the original, Barrett gets through. He's one of the main characters that you have in your party. But they were, it's a weird flex on the part of the developers that they're like, we could have killed him. We could have done this. Then the Whispers come and set things right. And they started to do it so much that it started to get annoying that they kept leaning on the Whispers to keep things on the way. And at one point, Aerith says,
Really?
it did. It totally got annoying to me, like to a certain point, because Aerith is like, oh well, they try to keep Destiny locked in. People try to change Destiny, and the Whispers try to fix that. And so, like, I got what it was doing. It's that, oh, the Whispers are keeping it on track to play like the original game and to keep all those story beats, even though it seems like the developers don't want to, but they're using the Whispers to reset it. It happened like 3 times in an hour and a half or something like that, and I just got like, oh my god, stop. Um, and then they're on the highway out of Midgar, and Sephiroth shows up, which I don't think happened in the original, and he goes off to do a thing, and the Whispers are like, oh, we can't let that thing happen. Protagonist, you can't follow him. That's going to be very bad for Destiny. And the protagonists are like, fuck Destiny! We're going! And it is masterful because what it ends up being is that the Whispers are trying to keep the game on the original railroad of Final Fantasy VII. And the combined actions of Sephiroth, somehow knowing that in this alternate timeline of what Destiny wants that he loses, is trying to do something different. And the protagonists don't want, see that like breaking Destiny might be a really good thing to do here. Aerith might or might not know about her impending death.
She
So
definitely does. Sorry.
yeah, like, and so for her, Breaking Destiny is like, I would kind of want to live. I mean, like, the world turns out okay in that one, but maybe we can do it better. Um, and so at the end of the game, the protagonists break Destiny. They destroy the forces that have been keeping things in line. And now maybe Zack, who was killed in before the game even takes place, maybe he's now alive. Maybe they're going to run into him. Maybe he'll be a character in the game. Maybe Aerith won't die. Maybe Barrett's going to die. Who knows what's going to happen? They sent the remake off the rails, so now they have it's like a workshop where they're starting with the same opening chapter, and now they are free to do whatever they want. And that is so exciting to me. Like, I haven't played 7, but, like, the story of 7 has been told, and it has been told very well. My introduction to the characters of Final Fantasy 7 was Final Fantasy 7 Advent Children.
Which is non-canon now, by the way.
Well, because of the way that it does, it's like maybe it's playing with different timelines. It is still canon for the other timeline. It is still canon for the original 7 timeline. But it is not canon for the remake timeline because of what they're doing now. It's just really exciting to see where they take it. And of course, we have to wait a couple more years for them to come out with Final Fantasy VII Remake 2 or whatever they end up calling it. Who knows?
The fact that the two characters in the scope of Final Fantasy VII that do not make it to the end, that's from the beginning credits to the end credits, do not have a heartbeat at the end of the credits, no matter how many Phoenix Downs you have for some reason. Know that this is the way things are supposed to be. There's a couple moments in the game where Aerith characters approach her and say things to her, and she finishes their sentences.
Ooh.
You don't initially pick up on it.
No.
You don't initially pick up on it because it's so subtle. The other thing with her is that she says things that were similar to the original playthrough, where she's like kind of fawning over Cloud and like talking about how much she enjoys his company. But in this case, she's talking about how much she enjoys the memories they have together. Where in the game itself, they've only been together for like a week.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things of like Aerith and Sephiroth definitely know the events that are supposed to unfold in this world.
Yeah.
And the fact that it's amazing. The fact that Sephiroth leans over to Cloud and looks him square in the eyes and goes, "You have 7 seconds to make a decision." The cutscene, the famous cutscene from Final Fantasy VII, where Sephiroth falls from the heavens with the wings and slices Aerith straight in half, is exactly 7 seconds long.
Wow.
They are directly referencing history and these things, and I love the fact that they made the Whispers to be this collective fate of everyone's collective memories of how the game is supposed to be, and in canon-wise, how it's supposed to go. Like, I love this idea.
Can I say how masterful it is too? That like, if people whine and complain about the new direction that the remake is going to go in, it's just like, stop trying to be stuck in Destiny. They're doing new things now. Stop being a whisperer about it.
I love it, and
the Whispers are the awful neckbeards of the Final Fantasy VII fandom.
That's exactly what I was like. It's the fact that that game literally is acknowledging its old fan base and then trying to say, but here's this over here, and here's you trying to forcibly recreate the storyline. Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
And the fact that, these characters are not changing who they are fundamentally, and I love it. Like, it's so cool.
It's again, it feels like a writing workshop where they're
so cool.
They're given a cast of characters and a starting line and say go.
They're like you know our work. We've gotten more than 25 different Final Fantasy games, main storyline or side games or whatever, and now we're going to, for the first time, revisit something, and you get to see what we have learned from then to now, and now you get it. And that for me is worth $60 a pop.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, absolutely. Because like this did a really good job of taking a small kind of contained part of the game and making it a full game's worth. And it worked well on that respect alone. But the promise of future games that this set up, that it is going to be new and fresh, where they are given carte blanche to do whatever they want. That is what is going to excite me for the future entries.
Also the fact that, just for spoilers for people who have not played the original, after Aerith dies, all of like the cutscenes that happen after that, there is a gap in between your party where another character should be, which is what made people think when you played the original one that there was something they missed.
Yeah.
A secret, a quest, a storyline, an item that would cause that cutscene to be different. It wasn't possible. Square Enix has never admitted that they wanted Aerith to be there, and they just couldn't process having that many party members or what have you. The fact that there's a blank in the text in one of the final scenes where they're listing off the characters, and there's just an Aerith text-sized space between two character names.
Huh?
It's going to be so much fun. I am relieved, Boater, to have done a little market research on Final Fantasy VII, by the way, and to find out that the Insane Games TV acquisition team was doomed from the start
Yeah.
to try to get us a copy, because you and Steph are incredibly lucky that your pre-order did not get canceled.
Yeah.
Because so many people went without. Like, they're saving room for the Holy Spirit.
That's one name for Aerith. Um, yeah.
I also love Auntie Klaus's things. There's for Square Enix shenanigans. You know, for $14.99, you can buy the Save Aerith DLC.
I will say that in 15 I was pretty annoyed when, like, they hold on. They didn't outright state to you.
Yeah.
They didn't outright state to you that oh well, Ignis is blind now because of what happened over here. It was just like, oh, he got an injury around his face. He'll be fine. He'll shake it off in a couple weeks. And then you kind of like hear off to the side like, no, he's blind. He's blind. And
Motherfucker will never see again.
yeah, and it's like, oh, well, he goes with you into this combat area, and he can't go too fast because he's got a walking stick, and you, like, end up resenting him for it, and then you feel bad because you resent him, and meanwhile, Gladio's being a dick. But I don't know how I got there, but it's like, oh, because they have DLC for, well, play through episode Ignis to see exactly how that happened, and to know that that happened, like, Final Fantasy 15 was really bad about get the DLC to see what happened to these characters when they left your party, as well as a prequel for the big bad.
So I don't know about Steph or you or anyone watching that has 7 or games of this nature, but the fact that you can kind of turn back around a little bit and regrind your character
Mm-hmm.
to power them up so that in a year when the next installment comes out, either you can just your way through everything, or
Yeah, I mean, I
have
assume that this
everything
is going
unlocked.
to be like the Mass Effect games where you can import a save from one into the next one, and you carry over your materia, you carry over the weapons that you've managed to grab along the way,
Square Enix's
carrying
past
over.
episodic installments will definitely have done it,
Okay.
and so there's no reason they shouldn't, unless they flatly say, because they will. They'll just be like, by the way, not coming.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah, so, and with this, I don't think that there's any reason not to. I mean, like, you're getting new weapons up until the very end of the game. And when you get a new weapon and you don't have it, like, leveled up to the same extent that your previous weapons are, what's the point of getting a new weapon right at the end of the game when it's something that would need to be leveled up to be effective? Well, it's to carry it into the next game. So, excited for that.
so Boater, I have
Yeah.
something I'm putting in chat. Ooh, look at how shiny it is. I'm sorry, I have
Okay.
nowhere else to put this, but I'm really excited for it.
Okay, we're gonna find out how shiny this is, but we're gonna sacrifice your face on camera as
That's-
soon as the window loads.
Totally fine.
Level cap for the
Because-
remake is 50, so hopefully you can carry that. That makes sense that they cap it at 50, so that you're starting at 50 when you go forward from there.
Because in past Final Fantasies, 99 was the cap. Or at least it got to be 99.
Yay!
Ooh, an 11-inch Shenron from Dragon Ball Z just came out today. Just saw it. Really want it. Not going to buy it right now. 'Cause first of all,
like that next to the standard pop size. That's a handy reference.
also the fact that it's nestled over those sweet, sweet Dragon Balls.
Very nice.
You too can use the Dragon Balls to wish for a physical copy of Final Fantasy VII, or pull an oolong and the world's most comfortable pair of panties. Whatever it is you choose.
Whatever.
All the
You know.
Namekians back to life. Speaking of wishing things back to life,
Actually, before we get to that, how about our community
yes.
question? Because
Sure.
because we just spent a half hour talking about spoilers of Final Fantasy, and frankly, like when I had never played Final Fantasy VII, I still knew that Aerith died. So things get spoiled for you. So our community question this week was, what's been spoiled for you? And more than that, like, what was the worst? How did you put this, Dave? How did you put this
I said,
question here?
what's something you had spoiled for you and how? And then I did put a disclaimer that spoilers will be ahead for people reading.
Yeah, and maybe
Um,
like what was maybe the most annoying spoiler you've gotten? What's the most heartbreaking spoiler you've gotten?
So
Um,
you guys in chat definitely think of your answers and chat them in our right now while Boder and I discuss it and we discuss the community answers.
yep. So for me, it was, oh God, I think it was while watching Stargate, because what I would always do was that I would follow along on Stargate Wiki and share like trivia from that episode when we were watching that. And uh, I eventually, the problem with that is that looking up something on a wiki or TV tropes, when you're not done with it, you're gonna find out when characters die.
Mm.
And so I think I can't remember exactly what it was at this point, but I know where like there was just a moment. I was sitting on the couch next to Steph, and I was like, "Oh," and she's like, "What?" And I'm like, "Saw a spoiler," and I was good, and I didn't share it with her, and I don't remember what it was at this point because it was a few years ago. Um, but just absolutely like that kind of thing. Maybe it was that. Maybe it was while we were watching some anime series together. I don't remember exactly. Dave, what about for you?
For me personally, the first ever spoiler I remember seeing or hearing about was Lieutenant Yar's death on The Next Generation,
Okay.
actually. Um, some TV Guide magazine that I was sitting at my grandparents' house and reading, the actress whose name escapes me, unfortunately, um, she got this featured thing where it's like she's going to be on this show full time. Too bad about Star Trek. And I like read that line and I thought to myself,
Oh,
huh. I was like, but she's like the security chief, and so she can't just like not be there.
yeah,
Like, and no one had
yeah,
been written off the show thus far unless you were wearing a red shirt, and she was not wearing a
yes,
red shirt.
yeah,
Um,
exactly.
so I was super depressed about that. Um, but then we got Lieutenant Worf, and he was kind of better. I'm not gonna lie, at me, but seriously, um,
Yeah, yeah, but like,
story arc possibilities for me were better. That's still
yeah,
what I'll
I
say.
think like while watching Game of Thrones, I wouldn't be able to watch it till the evening, so like, social media was always a landmine, and I would see a meme where I was like, damn it, especially during
um,
that last season.
by the way, something else that was really funny that the show The Walking Dead spoiled the end of the episodes by telling you who was going to be on The Talking Dead after the episode, because if
Oh
they
yeah.
appeared, you knew that they were dead. Like,
Yeah, you
like
start to cop
sorry,
to that kind of thing.
if it wasn't the two main, if it wasn't Norman Reedus or Rick or Carl, you knew
Uh-huh.
that like, oh well, this character died. Great. Like,
Yeah.
um, Vladdy in chats, more like rigor mortis. Well, I was today years old when I found out that Aerith died, so
But that's also like what it's the kind of thing like what are you looking forward to experiencing on your own, whether it's watching or playing whatever, and then like someone says something and you don't get that moment that you didn't even know you would have been looking forward to.
yeah. Um, Demon Dragon in chat, Snape kills Dumbledore.
And we got an
Yeah.
agreement from that over in the nerd glasses question spot of your Discord. Or in general, I used to be obsessed with Harry Potter, still love it. But the last book was spoiled to me by a vindictive ex-boyfriend, so I have to this day never ended up reading it. That is shared by Rafe. Uh, and yeah,
When
like
I
that sucks to the point that like not only can you not enjoy that moment, but that it kind of soured you on the book itself. Like,
yes.
yeah.
When I used to work for the Boy Scouts of America in a camp, we would get the Harry Potter books because they came out like mid end of summer.
Yep.
Well, one of them did. And this kid took it, read the entirety of it, and then ran through the reservation screaming, Snape kills Dumbledore, Snape kills Dumbledore on this page, and this and that and the other. And I heard a sound, and I'll never hear it again in my life because it's the most alarming thing, Boder. And you might have felt it. You may not have known it, but the collective sound of over 100 copies of a book hitting the ground Um, it's it's
Oh
alarming. We
no.
actually we actually had to find that kid and like put him somewhere where he could be safe from people because there were like very
Oh
vindictive Harry Potter fans
no.
looking for him. Um,
Oh my.
so it was a unique life experience having to protect nerds from other nerds. It was weird. Like, um, it was really, really weird. Um, Anti-Klaus Prime in chat talking about uh, got told the content of the infamous part of the movie Seven, which, by
Uh-huh.
the way, if you haven't seen it, I really like it. But and you can probably relate to this, Boder, and I've had this, but Anti-Klaus had it where it was just told to him, and he didn't have
Uh-huh.
any context for it per se.
Yes.
And then, like a couple of years later, went to go watch the movie and was like, "Son of a bitch!"
Yeah,
Like,
where like there's just enough context where like this is what that kid was talking about, and it hasn't actually happened yet. I'm gonna get no catharsis from this. Ugh. Because it's one thing if you're like reading the language of a movie to know what's gonna happen next.
yeah,
Watching Star Wars Episode 9, and I don't have a spoiler graphic up here, but knowing that like Rey's gonna fucking kiss him, isn't she? No, don't do it. This entire movie, this is leading up to that. No, I don't want. No, no, why? Like that is one thing to read the context and the language of a film to get there, but when
yep.
someone just ahead of time is like, man, but it was really, it was, man, I really liked it when Rey kissed Ben, and the entire movie you're just like, well, fuck.
We really need to get like a spoiler graphic for
Yeah,
us to just for the future reference.
yeah,
Um, Anti-Klaus also said, and this is the reason I don't watch trailers. A meme. It's not a trailer, but a meme ending is spoiling the ending and twist to the movie Interstellar.
yeah.
Um, so I can only imagine. And then Steve recounted, and I don't know that he knows that this is a Dan story, but we had to put up on Insane Games TV the weekend that The Force Awakens came out. Don't talk about Force Awakens. We all work full time.
Yeah.
Because a kid literally walked in, and Dan is very good speaking to the customers. He really is. But he's like engaging with the person, and the kid literally looks up and he goes, "Yeah, I just watched Star Wars. Sucks that that Han Solo dies." And you could see that moment on Dan's face where he was
Oh
like, "Yep,
my god.
this is why I don't come out behind the counter. This is why." Like,
Yeah. I mean, like we had to like at work someone what was it? I think 8? No, this would have been with one of the Avengers movies. And we had a character. Wow. He was kind of we had a customer in that you know, great, doesn't really know social situations that well. I forget the exact name of what he's diagnosed with, but just talks to people and is very gregarious, which is great. He loves
mhm,
talking to people. He has no concept of boundaries or when to stop. And at one point, like he loves movies, and he started to talk about. I'll just say it was Infinity War, but snappier. And me and someone else had to nearly physically we didn't physically grab him by the arms and shove him out of the store, but we did that verbally and just be like, yo, leave now. Oh, let's just talk. Leave. They haven't watched it. Don't spoil it for them. Leave. And that's why, like, big tent poles, I'm happy that there's kind of this movement of don't spoil it. Like, be conscious of that. Like, if a movie comes out for the Christmas season, I like to wait until New Year's Day before I post memes on Facebook or something. Give
yeah.
you a couple of weeks. Like, I want to talk about it while it's still in the zeitgeist, but like, give people a reasonable chance to get out there.
I will never forget at Saratoga Comic Con was when was coming out.
It
It
must have
was the
been Endgame
same
then, yeah.
it was the same weekend, and so the guy over the PA made this joke every single day, every 15 minutes, that he was like, "By the way, spoiler alert for Avengers Endgame." And our friends from Geek for All looked up and just said, "If he spoils something for me, I'm gonna make him eat that microphone." Like,
Yeah.
Johnny C, by the way, consummate professional, did not spoil the movie, but did well overwork the welcome of that joke. and that's coming from me. Okay, like, um,
Oh, wow. Yeah, like spoilers are tricky or they're not. They're not. Don't talk about a thing that just came out. But at the same time, if you're watching through something that's old, like when I watched through Stargate, maybe I should just not be on Stargate Wiki. That one was my fault.
um, speaking of things that are our fault, Venom 2 is postponed to 2021, but it got a new name. Instead of Venom 2, it's Venom.
Anti-Venom.
Let there be
No, that'd actually be somewhat
carnage.
cool. Okay.
I'm very excited about that. I cannot wait for it. I liked Venom a lot. I really wanted to plug that one because, again, it doesn't have any
Yeah, yeah.
connective tissue. Um, Speaking of things that don't have connective tissue to reality, GameStop is going to try to open some stores up again because they're an essential business, and why not? Like,
They're just looking to get their business license revoked in even more states.
their CEO is taking a 50% salary reduction, but they still plan on closing 300 stores on this hand. But right now, if you are in Italy, Lieutenant Bulldog, um, Germany, Anti-Claus Prime, uh, Austria, I love you guys. Don't have anybody yet, but get on it. And South Carolina and Georgia, because God knows the U.S. is doing this right. Hmm. um, so yeah, GameStop, you're truly reaching into that old bag of tricks and
You're
doing
giving it that shot.
the
You're trying.
same old shit.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, could be using the time to, like remodel some stores and get them fresh and ready for whatever, new things because the old business model was on its way out anyway, so maybe they could get ready for something new. No, no.
so I am going to copy a link to the other big topic that we had. It's a video, so feel free to watch it after or watch it during. Please stay tuned.
Nope, did not mean to open that up in here. Um, okay, no, pause. Okay, that's a video. If
So
I can show it, but that's, okay, let's talk about it. You know what? I'll mute
Nintendo
it and have it down there.
Nintendo
Get this out of the way.
announced that New Horizons is getting some expansions, and they are things that when I got home, Claire and I were very excited to discuss, and I literally cannot wait for April 23rd. Um, if you don't know, Animal Crossing came out, and there were some characters from New Leaf and previous installments that were just missing,
Uh
and you thought
huh.
to yourself, where are they, and how are they going to integrate into this game? Well, if you miss your slothy villager who sells greenery, April 23rd, you're getting him back. He's getting a cart. He's going to potentially move into your stores, things like that. And if you're like me and you looked at your museum and you thought, why are there no art pieces? And also, why is there a second story staircase to nothing?
Uh huh.
Well, April 23rd, we're going to be getting an expansion where uh, Red, the clever little fox that sells paintings and fakes their huff, is going to be coming back to your island and trying to sell his wares, be it fake or not. Super excited about that. But you will not get the expansions for the museum for a little while. There's also going to be Nature Day from April 23rd to May 4th. Um, uh, May Day
May
Tour.
Day, International Museum Day. I'm seeing up right now.
Yes.
So like it's an expansion in a whole lot of events, and they
Mhm.
announced it today,
Yes.
and it's starting in 2 days.
Yep.
That's nuts. That's also one of those things that kind of gives you that pause of like, pause, of like how much of this was ready to ship and could have been in the base game, because it's one of those. I remember this being a big thing maybe 10 years ago, of when major DLC would come out just like a month later, and it's like this was ready to go. Like this would have been ready to go when the main game shipped. Um, in the aftermath of that, there was some goodwill efforts where it was like, all right, cool, this major DLC is ready to go, but we agree with you. This probably should have been in the base game, so it is a free update to everyone that owns the game. The major rebalancing update of Mass Effect 3 comes to mind, where they changed
Yeah.
what's needed for war assets and everything. That's free, and came with some extra bonus stuff as well. Like, it changes what the game is out of the box, but for better or worse, games on modern consoles uh, are somewhat a service. Yes, they can be played off the disc, but you're usually not getting the best version of that game if you're playing a release date disc.
Yes. In the case of Animal Crossing, because I've been
Or
playing it to
cartridge, sorry.
ungodly ends, I think this was intentional in the way that Nintendo did what they did. They took something, a well-established IP, and they said, okay, and now we're going to change the color, we're going to turn it 45 degrees, and then we're going to change one other thing about it, and then we're going to hand it back to you as a new thing, making it a lot more fun and very different, and as Nintendo does. And I think that this periodic adding of events, because goddamn that bunny, for the Easter event, but and these things are a way of getting players to get familiar with how the game is going without being overwhelmed by everything.
Hmm.
Um, the fact that they're adding Leaf and Red, and the museum's going to get expanded, and all these events in quick sequence of each other. By the way, if
Yeah.
you're looking at the
These these
release
aren't
dates,
these aren't like paid DLC, right? Are these
mm-mm.
Okay,
these
cool.
are
So
these are going to be
this is along the
expansions to
line
the
of
game.
I misunderstood what you were talking about at first. For some reason I thought it was a paid expansion with stuff. No, okay, so that's in line with what we were talking about with like the more goodwill kind of thing where it's like, hey, here's some stuff that is just post release. You've had fun getting your bells and harvesting your turnips and wondering what the heck is going on with that fish that was clearly a fish and now is a boot. Now
Yep.
here's time for new things. That I'm a lot more okay with.
I'm very excited for it, and I'm looking forward to seeing the expansion of the island life, to put it in their terms. Um, I'm also looking forward to seeing what art they choose, considering that New Horizons is a 2020 game, so they don't necessarily have to be chained to. Um, my point is, I'm looking forward to seeing if they use digital art as something that Red tries to sell you,
Okay.
because there's many fantastic artists or pieces that have come out in our modern day mediums
Mhm.
that are not represented in past games because they weren't relevant yet. Like
Yeah.
when you had the GameCube, you wouldn't reference something that someone did online because it wasn't,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
an
Uh,
established norm.
yeah. It wasn't an established norm to be able to reference that kind of thing. Online was still in its infancy, and the GameCube was still a couple generations ago, and a long lead up into doing things and hard to change things at the last minute to keep things relevant.
Mm.
Compare that to the Deadpool movie, where they snuck in a couple of jokes at Subway Jared's expense when they were like, "Oh, his mouth is covered. We can sneak this in at the last second," and they did. Compare it to South Park, where they have a really quick animation turnaround and can reference something from 2 weeks ago in tonight's episode, kind of thing.
Yep.
And then contrast that with something that is takes a huge studio, needs to be pressed onto discs and needs to be distributed. And it's interesting to think of how especially on console, but even PC games were like that at that point. Patches were a thing, but they were more for bugs and not really for content. Um, and it's interesting to think of just in 10, 20 years how far that kind of thing has come.
Exactly. Um, so that's the Animal Crossing news. As people continue to victimize some undesirable villagers, or as Nintendo continues to add events, because if you ever do the Bunny Day event like the way that you do, I will be writing a letter. Um, but
I want to follow up really quick. You mentioned something
yeah,
last week, and that was the Hyperkin controller, the Duke controller for Xbox One.
yes,
I did recording for Mech Assault, which is an original Xbox game, and I did it with my Duke controller. This is not as comfortable as I remember. This was comfortable for me back in the day. But I will admit that there we go. I will admit that the Xbox One controller has much superior ergonomics, but it was nice to be able to do this, and it was interesting playing a game where like the right trigger is fire, the left trigger is what switches weapons,
Yeah.
and there's no like zoom or whatever, and it's something where like if they made it on a current console, you could see them zooming with the left trigger, getting more, iron sights or whatever you want with that, and using the bumper to switch weapons,
Yes.
because they already had other things for their face buttons to do, which, frankly, I barely use the face buttons. Actually, yeah, you're all on sticks and triggers the whole time, so I don't think I used the face buttons once. So it was interesting with that. But yeah, like I noticed after a couple hours, my hands getting kind of not quite gripping the right way. Also, to be fair, I was wearing these biking gloves, which are not really meant for holding the controller. So maybe that was the issue.
Your hands were getting kind of logy and like just weren't.
Well, no, it's these are biking gloves, so these are like padded in here. It changes the shape of my palm that's holding things. So maybe that's why it wasn't holding on quite right.
So Boater,
So Dave,
it's 8:26. Unfortunately, it looks like we're gonna have to talk about Death Stranding next week.
yeah, there
Um,
was some talk of Death Stranding being, and this has kind of been going on for a while now, but like the latest Kojima game to predict the future and getting closer and closer, and it kind of wanted to go into depth of that, but can't quite do it this week.
but it's on the docket.
Yep.
We'll comp your flight for this week, Death Stranding, but we'll get you next week. Um, but I did wanna ask Boater, what's going on next?
Next is the Citadel.
Ah,
And because I spent all day recording Mech Assault and creating the Final Fantasy spoiler graphics really quick, I didn't prep a different game to play, so we're just gonna do We Happy Few again,
God, yes.
which I've really been enjoying. I'm gonna take these off so I can actually use a mouse and keyboard, and we're gonna dive into it. I'm excited for it because it's been a really fun game to play. And I'm excited to speak in an awful British accent again for the rest of the night.
I look greatly forward to it, and I always do. I also look forward to if my internet happens to crap out or I fall asleep, that I can also watch back episodes on YouTube.com/Boaterbug.
Yeah,
Just
We
for
Happy Few is I've been cutting it up into like 25-minute episodes to go up on YouTube just to keep content coming as I get Mech Assault recorded, as I get something else recorded. That's coming out there too. Just because I am enjoying the game so much, I want it to be one that has that permanent archive on my YouTube channel. So
yeah. I did also want to say quickly plug the fact that tomorrow my at DAM314 to pregame the weekend Wednesday on Insane Games TV, I'm going to be doing another art stream.
ooh,
Um, so starting at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on DAM314, myself and Claire will be live here in the man cave, doing art and then doing the posting it either on Discord or to the Google thing and then showing it everyone's art on stream. So definitely tune in for
nice.
that. Think of some art prompts if you guys have them, things like that.
That was a lot of
Uh,
fun the last time that I participated in that. I was watching and playing from home, so that was really fun.
it's I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to doing it with Claire, because she is a fantastical artist. I am going to reach out to Valai and Alec and see if they can participate from their home. I will probably not have them on video or chat or anything just because it'll really overcomplicate the
Yeah,
system.
but at
But
least like, hey, can you pop in and be playing from home, much the
yeah,
same as any viewer can by stopping by twitch.tv/DAM314 at 5 o'clock tomorrow.
um, but I wanted to make sure to say that just so that people didn't get out of the way. But
Yeah,
I am
absolutely.
so pumped for more We Happy Few. It's a game. I'm not gonna lie, Boater. I really did enjoy um, the original runs where Remember Me got its time, and some of the other games
Yeah,
that got a couple episodes. But I really enjoy the fact that it's clear that you're enjoying We Happy Few on the Citadel, and so it's really really carrying over into the viewing audience.
It's
Although
it's
I
nice to
must
enjoy the
ask,
game while I'm playing it at home. If I don't enjoy the game at the studio, I can break something and it's not mine. But I
yeah.
can't really do that here.
Which begs the question, more Mad Max possibly?
Possibly. I need to get a good capture card to be able to stream console stuff
Mm.
from here. Also, my Mad Max disc is still at the studio. I have Dragon Age. We could do that. I need to get a proper capture card to do console stuff from here. So until I get that, which might be a couple weeks, might be a little longer. My birthday's coming up. Support me on Patreon. Um, until such time as that, I will be playing PC games here, and that means We Happy Few starting in about 15 minutes.
Hell yes.
So, with apologies to Death Stranding and a salute to all the spoilers that we've discussed today, I'm sorry if something got spoiled for you that you were really looking forward to. Hopefully, we can make that up to you sometime in the future, or you can just spoil us on something and we'll hate you just as much as you hate us, because that's what friends are for.
Exactly.
Thank you, everyone, so much for watching the Nerd Glasses podcast. Please hang out right here at Insane Games TV, where we will be going offline for somewhere between 60 and 120 seconds, 1 to 2 minutes, as I get a couple things switched over and start going live for The Citadel playing We Happy Few. Thanks, everybody, and goodbye!